Team Vitality exploded onto the scene, starting the 2018 season with a 7-1 record. This young squad of rookies showed just how much potential they have.
Good engage. Nice.
And then they showed us what happens when their confidence is shattered. And the big question on my mind, will Yamato lead Vitality to their first playoffs since spring 2016? Splice have a chance to skip the quarterfinals if they can carry on playing the way they have. They had their first 2-0 week. I like the fact that they're playing around Odawame. I like the fact that Xerxes is stepping up and stealing Barons. And I like the fact that these guys are now joining Kobe as carries.
It's gonna fall. Splice, show us how it's done.
The Unicorns of Love have made every single playoffs of every single split they've been in. Nobody believed they were making playoffs this split. But the Unicorns are on a 5-game winning streak. This miracle run, some people are saying, is divine intervention. I say Unicorns chaotic magic.
Big shutdown. How many can he get? Exile's got one. They're going to blow up two. Another shutdown. Flexing forward for Kabi. Trying for the big outplay. But it's
For the reigning champions, G2 Esports, they've been stuck in the shadow of their arch nemesis, Fnatic. And what they are fighting for today is redemption. If G2 want to make first, they have to win every single game from here on out. If G2 want to make history and win their 5th consecutive EU LCS title, it's on the last remaining member of the Old Guard, Perks, to lead his team towards eternal glory. For the last 2 years, Rocket have been the Kingslayers. It's one thing to kill a king, but you have to prove you can rule a kingdom to stay on top. The player that might have the answer is Memento, and he's going to have to make some more epic game-saving plays, maybe around Baron, to make Rocket get into playoffs. This year has been a reset for Misfits. They shocked the planet by making it to quarterfinals of Worlds 2017, and coming into the new year, they had to make some roster swaps. A lot of eyes were on Senkax to be the missing puzzle piece that took Misfits to the title. Mickey X on those playmaking champions is a monster, and Hunt Summer is having the split of his life. It's about time to figure out who will make it to the 2018 ULCS Spring Playoffs.
And for the first time in history, the 4th consecutive EU LCS title, G2 Esports.
Misfits, the underdogs in this game. No one expected anything, but they picked hard.
Jankos, the first Blood King! Let's make this a clean fight.
Welcome to Berlin, Germany for the penultimate week of the EU LCS Spring Split. Each team has 4 games left to secure their spot in the playoffs, and with everything still left to be decided, we're gearing up for some crucial matchups in the upcoming days. Now, I'm Daniel Dracos, here again with Martin Deficiolunga.
I'm happy to be joined by Bearded Shocks.
I'm so happy that you continue to call me that.
I think it worked last time. You guys have a lot of similarities, except for the beard.
Okay, all right. I mean, I'm just gonna keep going on that one. Last week we got the first look at patch 8.4, and with it the rise of some very new champions. Now, Deficio, you picked out 4 of these. You talked about the ones that stood out the most to you. Why don't you run me through them?
Sion got to be the first one. Barely seen on 8.3. Then last week, picked in every single game. We're going to see even more of him because he's going to be in the mid lane now. Some people might even try and support. Like, Sion is going to get played everywhere, and he's going to be so hard to deal with in these games. Next one is also Skarner, of course. Europe was a little bit late.
Predator, dude, it's just so good.
I know.
It's so good.
And we had to wait for North America to do it. So shame on you, European players, for not figuring that one out faster. But of course, Predator Skarner, fantastic, involved in every single pick and ban phase so far.
And as well, the Cho'Gath. I mean, I think with the rise of Sion, of course, you're going to see other tanks coming up that can kind of deal with him. Cho'Gath has felt so good, looked great in the hands of Smitty J on H2K. All around, seems like just a really good pick.
Yeah, build Banner of Command, can kill Barons early, kind of fits the meta. Last one is Xayah. While she did get picked slightly less last week, I think she's still stronger on this patch. patch, just because there were nerfs to like Kalista. So Zyra Khan is one of the best 2v2 lanes you can play. Fantastic for mid-game snowball, which is what every team is trying to do right now. So I think Zyra is even better now compared to before.
Look, I just love that we get to see Zyra Khan. We get to see continuous engages and some aggressive bot lanes after so many calm things in like the 8.1 era. But of course, two of the teams that had a lot of success on the new patch were Unicorns of Love and Splice. They were the only teams to go 2-0 last week. Splice finally breaking the 1-1 curse of the show.
Finally, after so many weeks. It was actually good to see them play more early game. Great snowball against G2. Almost perfect game them last week. So I'm hyped about Splice. I think they can even get second place. We'll see if it actually happens. And they're fighting against a team like Vitality for that one, of course, because Vitality also ready to pick up a few more wins.
Yeah, starting to come back at least a little bit, of course. Yeah. And at the top of the standings, I feel like we have to talk about it. It's Fnatic. Dude, they're one way away from locking playoffs.
They're up there as always.
We heard earlier from Trevor that, hey, they are probably close to just keeping first as long as they keep going the way that they have been. And it seems like it's going to be difficult for anyone to stop Fnatic at this point.
Their schedule is fairly easy as well. It's 100% on them if they do not get this first place, because they should be able to win the remaining games.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, as the week progresses, Medic will be checking in to give you the latest updates in the race for playoffs. So if you are confused at all about standings and who is not locked, you can look forward to those segments as they will be coming in throughout the day. And
technically, no one is locked yet?
Technically, no one is locked yet, which is why this is important for Medic to tell us, because we don't even know yet. So one matchup that can prove to be pivotal is coming up later in the day, however, between Splice and Misfits. Two contenders in the fight for a quarterfinal bye. Some said that this could have been our match of the week, but regardless, it is going to be one.
You read Reddit.
It's exciting. Okay, Reddit, maybe. All right, we're going to see. We're going to see, okay, who was right this time. Either way, it's going to be hyped.
It can just be second match of the week, because we've done that 2 weeks in a row now. It's going to be a big game between these two teams. Both of them, you know, showing a lot of good things, but still some weaknesses. And I just want to see who actually ends up highest in the standings, and if either of these teams can maybe get a second place.
Yeah, and also top of the standings, the people fighting for second is interesting, but also the people towards the bottom are really cool to me too. You've got Schalke, you've got H2K, both in very different situations. Can any one of those teams actually rise up?
One team we didn't hype at all, H2K. The other team we maybe overhyped a little bit. Schalke, blame us for that one, because they're down there with H2K, and at the moment, I think there's a higher chance that H2K will make playoffs than Schalke.
Ooh, that feels weird.
I know.
To say. It feels weird when you look at the rosters, man, but that's the paper-perfect roster.
It's also the schedule, man. Schalke got G2 and Fnatic left.
All right, it's very true. But Martin, at the start of the week, I asked you to kind of pick out a couple of players that you thought would be clutch in the pursuit of playoffs this week, so why don't you run me through them?
Yeah, I'm going to only focus on junglers for this one specifically, and I want to start with Cold from the Unicorns of Love, because I'm on the Unicorns of Love hype train 100%, and it's because of him. He's the leader, he's the most valuable player on this team. It comes down to great early game where he's ganking and getting lanes ahead, and then he has this ability as well through really good shot calling to kind of guide Unicorns of Love through the mid game. So I think this is the most consistent Unicorns of Love we've seen, and I think a lot of players deserve credit, but let's be real. Cold gets the most credit for this one because he's such a good shot caller for this team. And they started at the bottom, and now they're almost in playoffs. So I think that journey is amazing, and I give him so much credit for that one specifically. I want to move on, though, to the next one. This is what I call a podcast superstar. It's, of course, Jankos. He was on the EU4 podcast talking about some of his very hands-on approaches to how he builds team synergy. But enough about that one. What's important here is that G2 Esports just looked better than last week, because it was bad. They only played for late game. I don't want to see that from the reigning champions. They're fighting for first place, and they have to keep up because they already lost to Splice and they're slightly behind Fnatic now. I just want to see aggressive junglers from Jankos. I think the meta is moving that direction. We're going to get more Olaf. I want to see him shine and become a carry for G2 Esports so they can actually continue to challenge for first place, which is where G2 Esports, of course, belong. Now, enough about two mortals. I want to talk about God Gilius himself, because this man is so important for Vitality's success, and I always talk about him. He's always on my list because his early game is crucial for how this team plays. Jizuke doesn't get ahead in his lane without Gilius around him. These early ganks, they need to work for him, and they need to work for Vitality, because we have seen later on in the game, they kind of also have to rely a little bit too much on Gilius when it comes to 50-50 smites, which has, you know, not really gone Vitality's way. But it's really because they refuse to stop the enemy jungler from getting into the Baron pit. Just get him out of there, let Gilius get his smite off, and then he will do fine, because Dragons love or hate Gilius. He is one of the most important players in the EU LCS.
I mean, he absolutely is, and I just love that anytime we talk about him, we always have to make sure, guys, we know the Smite thing happened.
It happened.
It happened. We're acknowledging it. We think he's still good, but also that's a bad thing.
That's the thing, right? It's awkward if you don't mention it because you just can't ignore it, but I also really want to say it is on Vitality as a team. Because if you keep letting your enemy jungler get in there for the 50-50 smite, you're of course going to end up losing more Barons.
And of course, Gilius and Vitality do have a chance to get some redemption, show that they can play a little bit more around those objectives as they do want to continue the hunt for a quarterfinals bye against the Unicorns of Love. So we talk a lot about Gilius. You talk about some of this being on the team, but how do they actually bounce back?
I think that loss last week, I don't think they need to bounce back too much from it. They had a great early game. Again, now they've kind of figured out, okay, camp mid lane as often as possible, and they figured out that they can actually use mini true packs a little bit more, not as a carry, but more like counter pick with a utility pick like Ashe. And I think someone like mini true packs needs to step up if Vitality wants to try and get a top 2 finish in the regular season, because they can't just rely on Jizuke getting hit. They need mini true packs as well.
And honestly, I just love seeing any Vitality member with another tool for engage. So I don't care if it's Ashe or a hyper carry. Show me some playmaking. You give him an arrow, he makes stuff happen. And it's exciting to see. And when you look at Vitality as an organization, Deficio, these guys haven't made playoffs since their first split in 2016. Securing a spot here, potentially being a runner for Copenhagen automatically by getting that semifinals lock, that's huge.
Yeah, this is the best chance ever, because back in 2017 spring when they made playoffs, they got 3-0 in the quarterfinal, and that was it. They were done. I think this lineup can actually do more, and I love the fact it's by picking up these rookies from the Giants lineup, putting Gilius with him and saying, you're going to be the leader on this team. And that might be exactly what Vitality need to actually get a top 4 finish in playoffs.
All right, well, Vitality face a tough challenge tonight against the stampeding Unicorns of Love on a serendipitous 5-game winning streak. Now, for a closer look at their playoffs run, here's Aaron Medic Chamberlain.
The Unicorns of Love. From 1-8 to 6-8, a 5-game winning spree. And now the question on everyone's lips is, can they do the unthinkable? Can they turn this split around and make it to playoffs? No, I don't think they can. But imagine if they did. Imagine if White Knight and Cold, if Exile and Samux, Totoro and Sheepy somehow rekindled this split after they were discarded by everyone else. Imagine if they made it back to finals like Unicorns have done so many times before. Now, I'm not saying it'll be easy, because in their way stand these titans, Perks and Caps, Hansama, and the god himself, Gilius. Every one of them have taken their teams to the top of the EU LCS. I'm not saying it'll be easy, but imagine if they do it. Imagine if they win. Imagine if the Unicorns get to playoffs. Because if they do, they're the best team in the European LCS.
That is one hell of a mic drop. Thank you very much, Medic, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Trevor Quickshot Henry, joined at the desk by Andrew Vedius Day, and that's a pretty hype way to intro the Unicorns.
Yes, it certainly is. Making the claim that they are the best team in the EU LCS. I'm sure Vitality are looking to try and silence that comment.
If they run the table, Vitality, Fnatic, G2, and Misfits, those are the teams Unicorns have to beat. It starts with Vitality today, and they start on the blue side. Take a look at the roster that is currently on that 5-game winning streak. We are playing on patch 8.4, and we've seen Exile and Samux stepping up to join Cold in recent weeks, and that's why they're on that winning streak.
Yeah, I love watching the Unicorns of Love right now. The one thing you can guarantee is we're going to get a bloodbath today.
Yeah, you definitely can. Their opponents standing in their way, maybe trying to stop that miracle run, is Vitality. Now, of course, this is a squad that's struggling. They are 1 win and 5 losses over their last 6 games. There's a couple members of the audience today wearing Gilius's face mask, and they're here to support the team, but I want to see whether or not Gilius will be able to stop Cold, whether or not he'll be able to stop Exile. Exile is making fewer mistakes in the early game. He had support from his jungler, and with Exile cleaning up his game and becoming a threat, the Unicorns started their winning streak.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you make that comment, Quickshot, because last week we saw Cole take a slightly different approach to the early game. We didn't see him trying to babysit his middle laner. We said, you know what, you're a big boy now, you got to fend for yourself, and instead he invested into the other laners. We saw him putting resources into Samux. We saw him trying to get White Knight into a favorable position. It paid off. They had a convincing win up against Schalke. They had a bit of a back and forth against H2K, but a strong early lead. And it is Cold who we are looking at to be the pivotal playmaker for this Unicorns of Love roster.
Cold versus Gilius.